Good evening and welcome to another episode of Territory Talk. I am your co-host, Shaina Smith Archer, hailing from the beautiful Virgin Islands. And with me tonight, I have my co-host, Thomas Christopher Famous, hailing from the Bermuda Islands. Hi, Chris.
Hello, cousin. How you doing?
I'm doing well, cousin.
What you're forgetting, I'm also from Tortilla as well.
Oh,
So
yes, yes. Well, from time you say cousin, it's a giveaway. It's a giveaway.
they might have thought you was from Bermuda.
Yeah, well, they know now.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to our show tonight. We have some very special guests to talk about the topic of regional unity. But before we get into it, we would love to again show appreciation to our media partners across the region. Truly, this has been a unity project, starting with Cayman Road Facebook page, Montserrat ZJB Radio, Virgin Islands CBN Radio FM 90.9, Bermuda's Channel 82, Radio Saba, PJFE FM 93.9, Barbados, CBC Channel 8, and our newest partner, well, I guess the latest, because we've been on at least a month now, News-Talk Radio Guyana FM 103.1. On behalf of our hosting crew here, we would love to say thank you for, partnering with us on this collaboration. And, we've been hearing very good reviews in terms of persons' interest in the different topics that we have. So we're really looking to continue to spread even further.
Mhm.
All right, Chris, over to you.
Yes, and good evening, everyone. Without further ado, this is our first episode for November. I forgot how many episodes we've done already, but the theme of this show has always been about regional integration and regional unity. And today we are blessed to have not one but two special guests from the region. And the first one is the Honorable Dr. Ambassador June Soomer, originally from the island of St. Lucia, but she's a regionalist, so she is from everywhere. And the Honorable Kyle Knowles from Turks and Caicos Island, but he also has roots in the island, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, correct? Right. So without further ado, I'll allow you to introduce yourselves, Dr. Soomer.
Hi, thank you very much, Chris. I am a regionalist, as you said, and because I am a regionalist, I have worked at many regional institutions and with many regional people. I have worked at the University of the West Indies. I now currently serve as the chair of the Open Campus Council. I am also the former ambassador to CARICOM and OECS for St. Lucia. I am also the former Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States. So, and right now I am in the Virgin Islands, right in the National Sustainable Development Plan. So we are all cousins. Thank you.
I like that one. We are all cousins. Honorable Knowles.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you on Territory Talks. My name is Kyle Knowles. I am a MP in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Newly elected, fresh into the political arena, but yet an optimist at heart, who believes in country, believes in progress, and most importantly, believes in the dynamics of who we are as a people and forging our way forward. So definitely open to the conversation at hand this evening, and thank you again for such an opportunity.
Okay, so we'll start off with our first question will be to the both of you, starting with our order of protocol. Dr. Soomer, when you hear the term regional unity, what comes to your mind?
Many different things come to my mind. I think for me, the first thing that comes to mind must focus on who we are as a people. The minister said it very clearly, who we are as as people. And I think that regional unity and regional integration must be about all of us. It cannot be about some of us. while others are on the periphery looking in and waiting to come in. It must be about how all of us with a common history develop as a people, develop socially, culturally, economically, etc. So that's one aspect of it. And it also means for me how we as a region face the rest of the world, how we come together with all the common things that we have, and how we present a front and a face to the rest of the world. I think one of the things that is most interesting about regional integration is that we see ourselves as people from around the Caribbean Sea. Yet when we look at integration with the sea as the center, we see that part of our sea is owned by the British, part of our sea is owned by the Americans, part of our sea is owned by the French, part is owned by the Netherlands, and part by the independent territories. We do not have a united Caribbean. And for me, regional integration must be about how we break through these boundaries and how we come together and work together for the development of people. The people must be at the center of integration and unity.
Thank you, thank you. That's very good note that you're getting on. I appreciate the part about all of us because at times some of us feel left out. Over to you, Honorable Kyle Knowles. How do you feel about what's your thoughts on regional unity / integration? You're on mute.
Sorry, I believe Dr. Suma, in her eloquent way of putting it, was very in depth in communicating that, and I think she was really spot on. It's really about all of us and how the dynamics of it all shapes the way the Caribbean and the people of the Caribbean move forward. I never really thought about the separation of us, be it from the American, the British, I never looked at it from that angle. So I believe that in uniting as a people, uniting of the different nationalities with a common goal and bond, we have a wonderful opportunity to make the Caribbean, a space where, not just from what we all have as our products, as from a tourism standpoint, but we can do things economically, socially. Those are the things that will definitely bring us together.
All right, thank you. Dr. Suma, as someone who has worked with many regional bodies, such as CARICOM and the Association of Caribbean States, tell us just a little back history for those of us that don't know about the long march for regional integration from where we were then to where we are now.
I don't know that it has been a long march. I think that we are a little impatient and we have not given it a chance to grow. Recalling where we came from, recalling our history, recalling that the first attempt at a federation of the region was really a colonial attempt. It wasn't our attempt. We were not independent countries. Yet we have carried with us a burden that we were not successful during the West Indies Federation, and that has in some way tainted our movement towards the civilization that we can become. So I think that it has not been a long march. I think that since the establishment of CARICOM, we are seeing a more concerted effort to bring us together in the region, first of all, and secondly, with the other Caribbean states around the Caribbean Sea. So you have the bigger and the greater Caribbean in the ACS, which of course was the brainchild of CARICOM, how we cooperate with countries in Central America, Latin America, etc., that are closely allied to us around the Caribbean Sea. It is not an easy thing, Chris, for us to have an integration movement when The first attempt at integration was to prevent us from becoming independent countries. I can tell you, as a historian and somebody who has written on the West Indies Federation, my PhD thesis is actually on the formation of the West Indies Federation, that the issue was never about integrating us. The issue was for the British to be able to administer us in a more centralized, efficient way. That is where the term good governance comes from. They were looking to see how they could integrate us to cut the administrative costs that they had when they were administering individual or groups of territories. So that was the first attempt. That was what the federation was about. At the same time, our people, through the trade union movement, through the nationalist movements and so on, were calling for independence and more autonomy. So the first attempt at integration was the in keeping with the British gradualist approach to giving us control of ourselves. And so I hesitate to always think of the West Indies Federation as our failure. It was not our failure because it was not constructed for our success. And so I think that what we have done in more recent times, looking at more functional cooperation and coming together, whether it is with regard to education and the University of the West Indies, whether it is with regard to very recent and more topical issues like reparations, like climate change, etc., and things that impact us, and where we see our government speaking out on these things, I think that we are finally starting to develop the ideology of our civilization. And I think that because of that, our integration will become stronger.
Okay. Wow. That's I don't know what to say because that actually
that was a mouthful, Chris.
No, because I didn't go to university to study history, but I love history. And I was always of the misguided impression that it was Jamaica and then Trinidad that caused the breakup of the Federation, the famous code of 1 from 10 leaves 0.
We like to blame ourselves.
Right. So thank you for educating myself and others on the root of the. I shouldn't say the root of the problem, but one of the branches of the problem that we have. Your thoughts on that, Honorable Knowles?
I don't even think I can follow up to that because it was so in depth. Like I actually, the approach and the way that the question was answered, I actually learned something from it because at the end of the day, we blame ourselves for so much. And the way, the federation, the explanation for the federation was defined, it was not of our own being. So why blame ourselves for it? And then, of course, when we look at CARICOM today, which is a bit more organized and causing us to be more conscious of our involvement as regional partners, I think, I don't even want to taint what was just said by Dr. Suma because it was just eloquently put, and I really want to, I would, even after this, I want to get more, I want to definitely do my research and get more information because I think we are missing something, when we have these talks, and we need to get to the root of it. And I think by addressing it, it will put us in the right mindset to move forward collectively as a people.
All right, so I have a question for you on that note, Honorable Knowles. Turks and Caicos is like Bermuda and BVI and others were overseas territories. The British, in their infinite wisdom, have always used divide and conquer. Right? What is your personal thoughts or the thoughts of your government on the overseas territories working closer together, us getting to know each other, so on and so forth?
Well, I would say this much: if it were not something that we embrace in the past, it is definitely something that we look to do now in the present and going forward. because of our common bonds being British overseas territories, understanding that we are all faced with the same fight. And I think that whatever the objective is at the end of the day, we must approach it together, because of, again, there are so many common bonds. Most people don't know that there are areas in Turks and Caicos, even the capital Grand Turk, that were built by the Bermudans. The Bermudans are literally our cousins. You know, so we need to I think that it is definitely on the table. I would say that through my recent travel and having conversations with persons from Cayman, persons like yourself from Bermuda, we find that we are ready to have and to embrace those ties and the mindset that we all share. And it's just time to get it and just time to get it moving, because we realize that with our connection to the United Kingdom, there are persons who are willing to agitate for us and for whatever it is that we want to achieve. But we, as individuals or as countries in our region, need to now collaborate and move collectively in that same vein.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to throw this one to you, Dr. Suma.
Can I follow up with what was just said?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is also important for those of us who are independent to recognize that our independence is affected by the lack of autonomy of the OTIs. I don't know if I should repeat that.
Yes,
but
please.
I think
Elaborate.
we cannot truly be independent. We cannot truly be free, because that is the root of independence.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot truly be free as a people coming out of enslavement if the people, the rest of the region and the people who surround us are not also free.
Wow.
I say that because when I look at how the independence movements evolved in the Caribbean, we held each other's hands as we went along.
Mm-hmm.
So people like Errol Barrow from Barbados was very much in tune with bringing the countries from the OECS along the independence path. But we seem to have stopped in that process of decolonization and making the region free. We seem to have said, okay, we are independent, so let us move on with our business and let us see how we can affect the OTIs as a group. So let us invite them in as associates and so on. But why are we stopping at involving them as overseas territories? Why aren't we moving with them towards full decolonization? We have the opportunity at the United Nations to do that. Let us lobby the independent countries. You have to start speaking for yourself. You have to start speaking for yourselves. Let us lobby, because I am not too sure. I am in the Virgin Islands right now, and I understand that this country is a country that has been funding its own budget from the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more granting aid here.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing things for ourselves, and I say we because I grew up every summer since I was 14 in the Virgin Islands. So I'm in love with this country also. And I understand the independent thinking of this country in bringing itself from being designated a bird sanctuary to where it is today, with a thriving tourist industry, with a thriving financial services industry. Why isn't it independent? Why isn't it independent? Now, these are things that we have to talk about with regard to our own consciousness as a people.
Mm-hmm.
Our own consciousness as a people. And so I think that while you are still trying to bring yourself together, we have a role. We have a role in the decolonizing process. that we have not assumed as independent territories, that we need to step forward away from our comfort zone right now and assist you in moving forward also.
And you know, Chris, the thing that really jumps out at me in terms of what she's saying is basically, you know, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So as a region, you know, the strength really is in the unity of that common vision that all of us share, which is to be, you know, self-governing of your own affairs and be able to make the decisions again of who you collaborate with, because we understand that the globe has basically become very small, even smaller, and there's no such thing as really independence, but interdependence, you know, especially starting with your neighbors, you know. So it, you know, I absolutely endorse what she is saying as it relates to, you know, the collaboration that needs to happen in terms of those that have gone before, you know, continuing to blaze the trail and lend more support to those dependent territories that are still, you know, on their journey.
Yeah, thank you for that, Doctor. One of the things that I've experienced, or any one of us in the overseas territories have experienced, is we collectively have this big country, big island, small island mindset amongst us. And what I find is with the bigger islands, I guess you have big, mid-size, and then small, is that there's not enough interaction with the smaller islands. When I say smaller, not necessarily geographic, but population size. Anybody under 100,000 is considered a small island. And apart from Carifta and, you know, the twice a year meetings at CARICOM, there's not enough interaction. What can be done to have the bigger island sort of help to mentor us towards not just independence, but make us feel accepted as we are part of the Caribbean family? Like,
well, I think you use the right word, mentor. Why shouldn't we be able to freely come to each other's countries and make these contributions at the level of government and at the level of individuals? I think one of the biggest weaknesses of the integration movement is that it continues to operate at the level of governments and not at the level of the people. Yes, the people have also made strides. As you rightly said at the beginning, Chris, you know, you have relatives here, you have relatives there, we marry here. My own family is like CARICOM. You know, when we have a family reunion, it's like a CARICOM heads of government meeting. We have Jamaicans, Barbadians, Dominicans, Kittians, St. Lucians, because we have intermarried, and Belizeans, Haitians, etc. You know, so we have intermarried. So you understand why I'm a regionalist, huh? You understand, because it's a family issue for me. And so, yes, and we have not gone the step further towards making our people comfortable with each other. We continue to have these borders and restrictions that tell us our people are criminals. You know that during enslavement, and let me use the example of Haiti. Because Haiti is a good example for us right now. If any enslaved person from any of the non-free countries at that time, non-emancipated countries, reached Haiti, it was declared that they were free as long as they reached Haiti. We run away to different countries. Those from the flatter islands run away to the more mountainous islands where they could hide among the maroon populations and so on. So we always knew that this was our region and that we could find solace and comfort with each other. Why have we allowed the colonial boundaries to keep us in fear of each other and divided? I think that integration must find a way of bridging that gap, of making the sea one. Forget about the waters that divide us. Think about the things that unite us. I think that is when integration will start to become successful. When we remove it only at the level of the heads of government, and our people start to see themselves as real Caribbean people.
What do you say to that, Honorable Knowles?
Wow, blown away again. I I think you again, the depth of which you are answering these questions is definitely um thought provoking. Because one of the things that in Turks and Caicos right now, um our political system is just over 40 plus years old. We are now at this stage allowing or afforded the opportunity to be a bit more diverse. And I use the word diverse in the sense that, it's become multicultural. So it's not just that we have persons from other Caribbean regions. We have, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, and the like. So when we talk about boundaries and when we talk about movement and we talk about being able to capture the true essence of who we are as when we talk about the regional perspective, it's a lot to think about, it's a lot to digest, because again, because of because of what history has taught us and what we have consumed, not everyone would be so open to that, to that kind of that intermingling of the different dynamics and cultures and what's not. So for me, it gives me a new perspective on how I think, listening to you, and the kind of your perception, and how we need to really embrace our regional brothers and sisters, because to be honest, some of us don't really care for it, but we have to learn, or we have to go back to the basics and understand from whence we came, understanding who we are as a people, understanding how it benefits us, because at the end of the day, if we look at, or if we come out of our comfort zones, like you had stated before, there's so much to offer, there's so much more at our disposal, but we have to be willing to accept it, because not everyone will be so open to what these benefits are.
Can I say it's not an easy thing? It is not an easy thing. But we do have everything it takes as a unified Caribbean to be a success. We have everything it takes. We have the human resources. We have the technical capacity. We have the educated people within our countries as well as within our diasporas. We have we can tackle our food security issues by growing more food in our biggest member states like Suriname, Guyana, Belize. These people have enough land to be able to feed all of us and for us to export to other places. So our food security issues we can tackle. We have the resources. We have the financial resources. As I said, look at the success of the financial services here and the kind of attempt that is made to destroy it, because it is something that is built from here. You talk about size. When you look at size, it is people are becoming billionaires from their basements.
True.
Why is it a whole island like this one where I now live cannot be a success? It is because they have told us that our size is a hindrance to our development. But integration can deal with that. It is not, as I said, it is not an easy thing because of our history. We continue to be very suspicious of each other. We continue to be suspicious of our governments. We give them no credit, yet we have nothing to say because all three of you here belong to British overseas territories. I don't want to tell you what has happened in the politics of Britain over the last couple of years, Yet we are considered the ones who are backwards. We are the ones who are considered corrupt, and all of a sudden, corruption has a black face. I am saying all of this to say that Caribbean integration must be something that we pursue and pursue in its fullest essence.
Wow. Any thoughts, Shaina?
I wholeheartedly, you see me here nodding, right? And again, it's something where we look at things, and I guess it's my background as a project manager. When you're putting a team together, you understand your team from positions of strength, not weaknesses. And essentially what, especially for my generation, it's amazing where, she's speaking from the generation before, and it still exists because it's been perpetuated down. And if we're not careful to break the cycle now, it will continue that we have xenophobia against people that have the same skin color as us. And then we look at those outside the region as being our savior and salvation, when in fact they don't have anything over us. The days of when education was a premium and it was only afforded to the wealthy have gone. So we know just as much, if not more, if you ask me, in terms of what we need to require us to shape our destiny and go forward as a united front. Because again, take a page out of the European Union. That is why they came together, because they understood they were stronger as a bloc.
The irony is CARICOM next year is celebrating, how many years we're celebrating, Doctor?
I cannot even remember.
70
50 years? 70 years?
50. We're celebrating, let's say we're celebrating 50 years. And the European Union is actually younger than CARICOM, right? But the European Union have successfully integrated and formed a bloc to some extent, and they see themselves as simply as European. Now they've got the little nuances of, oh, I'm French, blah blah blah, but they have open borders and they can work in each other's countries and so on and so forth, right? And one of the challenges
they were so perfect. Why did Britain leave?
Well, that's a whole nother show.
That's a can of worms she just opened up there.
That's a whole nother show. The long story short, what I'm getting at is that the Caribbean region altogether, I mean, even adding in the Spanish-speaking islands, just the islands alone, we're talking about over 40 million. If we're talking about just countries like Colombia, Panama, Honduras that are actually still on the Caribbean coast, we're talking even more. The point I'm getting at is that we as people of color in the Caribbean region, we quicker identify ourselves as British, Spanish, French, Dutch, or American, then we say we're Caribbean, right? We put these these prefaces on who we are and how we view each other. It's like my mother was born and raised in Tortola. Her father was from Antigua. When she said when she found out her father was from Antigua, she almost had a heart attack because she's like, oh Lord, my father's a Don Islander, right? We have this way of looking down on each other. No matter which island you come from, you look different. You look at the other island as less than, versus addition to who you are, right?
And just sorry for cutting you off, but just to add to that, it's similar with Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, because in the 60s, of course, Turks and Caicos was annexed to Jamaica at some point. So upon Jamaica getting their independence, the Turks and Caicos moved under the Bahamas. So when you look at it now, in the past, and my mother, who's a Turks and Caicos Islander, and my father, who's Bahamian, it wasn't the norm for someone who was living in the Bahamas to say that they were from Turks and Caicos. It was almost taboo. And here we are now, 20, 30 years later, where you have settlements in the Bahamas that are made up of predominantly persons with Turks and Caicos heritage. So, we need to be able to embrace, a lot of these similarities.
Yes, slight deviation, and this speaks to another part of our progress or lack of thereof. Dr. Suma, you were the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, and now we have Dr. Carla Barnett from Belize, who's the Secretary General of CARICOM. Studies and anecdotal things have shown that once women are in positions of leadership, it changes the dynamic to one of just the male ego to actually getting things accomplished. What do you have to say about women in leadership in the region?
It has been too long in coming, too long in coming. And when we get there, we have to, what I have found with regard to mobility and gender is that every time you are in a position or you get promoted to another position, you have to prove yourself over and over again. People don't ask men to do the same thing. They just assume that if a man is selected or elected into a position, that is qualified for the job. But as a female, you must be qualified at the highest level for you to be able to hold the post. So Dr. Carla Barnett and Dr. June Soomer became the first women because of years of accomplishment, years and years. Men don't have to go through that. But a lot of what you do and how you work within an institution like that is determined by the parameters set within the organization. You can, however, change things. I saw myself as a change agent. You have to change structures, you have to change thinking, you have to change ideology for you to be able to make the organization function. Yes, women will lead differently to men, but that is because we have the ability to see efficiency through a different lens. Because we are multitaskers, we're able to have our fingers on many different things at the same time. I am not saying that men don't do a good job. I would never say that. All of my mentors, or 99% of my mentors were male. My mother was my first, so I cannot say all. Most of my mentors were male. And I understand that because of the patriarchal system under which we lead and live, that we will have more men, getting these positions. Women themselves must step forward and understand that they are capable of doing these jobs. It is like saying to us, okay, you all are small islands, so you all cannot do this. It's the same thing that they say to women. You all are just women, so you all cannot do this. I mean, I see both Dr. Barnett and I as being at a disadvantage because we are Black, we are women, and we are from small countries, all of which work against us. But we also carry the hopes and the dreams of women who went before us and on whose shoulders we stand, as well as women who are coming up and whom we have to bring up. Because the first thing they will tell you is that women don't work well together. Not true. At the ACS, more than 75% of the staff were female. And we work very well together, and I've always worked in organizations very well with women. So there are these distracting things, and as long as you don't allow the distractions to dominate the way that you think and the way that you what you expect or what your output will be, then you will become successful. And so I wish Dr. Barnett every success. Her job is one of the most difficult in the region. And if she is not successful, you'll know what people will say. They will never say that it is because of the lack of resources that CARICOM has. They will never say it is because countries were not implementing policies that they were supposed to implement to make CARICOM more efficient. They will say it's because she was a woman. And we have to guard against these things, and we are always conscious of these things. And so I am hoping that we will not be anomalies, that we will become trendsetters, and that more women will be afforded these opportunities that we have been given.
Thank you. Over to the other lady in the conversation.
She is spot on. Chris, you know we talk about this every month in terms of
It's cool. It's when you reinforce things, you make it stronger.
And I'm so happy that we have a champion, is what I would say, that does not hesitate to again call things out for what it is, because there is a double standard, in so many arenas still that should never be the case. And that it is that we have to continue to encourage ourselves to keep forging forward and educate our counterparts in you guys as men to understand the disadvantage of the society by marginalizing by gender still, because it's as I have a quote I always go back to from Michelle Obama, where she talks about if 50% of your society is women, you're only running on half of your manpower, like literally, So we have to continue to always debunk those myths that women can't do anything that they set their mind to. There's nothing we are able to. So we gotta keep, encouraging, especially the younger women coming, because I know Dr. Suma knows the cycle again. It's a generational thing that we have to break.
Yeah,
yes, and it's at the heart of integration also.
Mm-hmm.
How can the Caribbean unite if half of the people are not afforded the opportunity?
Yeah.
And if you are looking at half of the people in terms of women and men, you have a challenge. But worse, when you're looking at more than half of the population as being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to move forward if such a large number of your population fall into that category? Because then when we start to talk about vulnerability, we also include men. Mm-hmm. There are many men in different areas that are extremely vulnerable, maybe because of poverty, because of lack of opportunity, because of lack of access. And so you're starting to see a Caribbean developing where only a few people are afforded that right and that opportunity, and the rest of us are left behind. No, unity must take all of us together. As I said in the beginning, all of us must move together for us to make this region what it's supposed to be.
Okay. Honorable Knowles, what is your thoughts on gender equality or gender balance in politics and other things?
Well, I can definitely say that this was a topic it just happened to come up as a conversation at the conference last week about gender equality. Here in Turks and Caicos, in the previous lineup, our deputy governor is female, our attorney general is female, a number of our permanent secretaries are female. So the gender equality conversation is not one that we have a hard time or task with here in Turks and Caicos. I think there is more emphasis to be put behind it. I've come from a family where we had strong women leaders. So whatever I can do or whatever can be done to embrace that is definitely something that I would support. I think again, Dr. Suma, in her eloquent way of putting it, is definitely spot on. There are hurdles, there are roadblocks that women will face, unlike men. But again, if we are going to be honest with ourselves, we know that there are women leaders who are very dynamic in the way that they go about their business. And it's not saying that men, again, aren't capable of doing it. And I guess this is just me speaking from my generation. We do have a lot of dynamic young women who are going to be poised to do great things in our country. For me, I would like to see, with that same number of young women, I would like to see young men stepping up to the plate as well. So there is that balance um, in the playing field. So I'm open. It's never a hard conversation for me because I accept it for what it is. And I think that the conversation should definitely be had at any given any opportunity, because there will be different views and perspective on it. For example, um, the Attorney General, while both of us were at the conference, she said, I wear such a prominent role in our government, but when I go home, this is what I'm expected to do. And it's not that her husband is demanding anything. It's just that she has to be so multifaceted in her dealings. So again, yes, women will have that challenge, but I think there's also an opportunity for us as men to support them when they do rise to the occasion.
Yeah. Let me say this. I went to my political party is the Progressive Labor Party, and we have 36 branches. Out of those 36 branches, maybe 25 are chaired by women. The chairperson of the party, the deputy chairperson, the secretary general of the party are women. Our party is a matriarchal party. However, it's not reflective in our elected parliamentarians, where we have 30 parliamentarians, and of those 30, only 6 are women. So somewhere along the line, there's something not cohesive, right? So we accept that we have miles to go. When I look at when I go to CARICOM meetings, and I think you should go to the next one, which is in Bahamas, Honorable Kyle Knowles. When I go there's only one woman in the heads. One woman, right? There are 20 countries represented, and there's one woman. But that one woman makes up for more than the other 19 at times. I say that in a sense to say, often when you get regional leaders speak at a podium, they speak about the interests of their country. They speak about the interests of maybe their constituency. This one woman, maybe somebody knows who she is, speaks about the entire region. When they get on the world stage, they speak about the region, all encompassing, whether you're independent, not independent, whether you're French speaking, Dutch speaking, that person speaks about the region. So one of the things that I say in regards to women in leadership is that is why Time Magazine has honored Honorable Mia Motley as one of the 100 most influential persons of this year, because she speaks about a region. The other leaders only speak about the concerns of their island, or their island groupings, or their sub-regions. Not all. Let me correct myself there. Many of them, because the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez always speaks about solidarity. And one of the things I say that to say, bring it home, to say that yesterday in Dominica, the Dominica Labor Party ruled out their candidates for their election, which is in 3 weeks' time. I counted one by one, almost half of their candidates are women. Some may make it, some may not, but I think they're all gonna make it because the opposition said they're not running. But the point I'm getting at is that this is what you call parity, right? We all know that not everybody's gonna win a seat in every election. That's impossible. But unless we have more women running as candidates, it's impossible to have more women as leaders. That's just and if you have a political party, sometimes people put the women candidates in seats that are least likely to win, so they could say, well, at least we gave women a chance, knowing that she wasn't going to win, and that's crap. Anyway, that's my take on that. So,
That's a short.
Or they give them ministries that are considered soft.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the strong ministries to run.
Yeah.
So, but it will change.
I think so. It's coming.
We're coming up on the 1 hour mark, so I don't want to take yours time. Honorable Knowles, where do you see Turks and Caicos in the next 10 to 20 years?
Wow, that's a big question.
No, let me start with, tell us in 2 minutes or less, tell us about your constituency, because we don't want your constituents to say, hey, we saw you on TV and you never mentioned us.
You're a true politician. Definitely, my constituents. I am in electoral district 10. We have 10 electoral districts here in Turks and Caicos. I make up the sister constituency to what we call Blue Hill. So in Turks and Providence, in Turks and Caicos, but mostly in Providenciales, our constituencies would be deemed the largest constituencies. A growing constituency, very dynamic, very diverse, multicultural. So again, when we talk about regional, being a regionalist, I can say that I'm trending towards that because we have so many different nationalities living amongst us. But again, we are growing. We are experiencing new things, and I believe that we will definitely, or we are holding the key to the future of Turks and Caicos, based on the kind of economic growth that we're currently experiencing and the way that we want to shape the lives of our people going forward. So we are poised. We're properly poised for that. And Wheeling is great. And again, we believe in what we have. And just like everyone else, I am also a resident of my very own constituency. So for me, it's two-pronged. I see it, I live it, I breathe it every day. So it's a living part of me. Where do I see Turks and Caicos? I see Turks and Caicos becoming more autonomous. But again, going back to our conversation, I think as our regional partners, as independent countries, there needs to be lobbying. There needs to be a unified voice amongst us as OTs. There needs to be us picking up the mantle and moving forward. But again, it's understanding from whence we came, and I think that is the one part that is missing. I think with the kind of diversity that we've experienced in such a short time, it kind of stretched us. So we got so honed in on economic empowerment, we've kind of withered away in knowing who we are as a people. So I think the dynamics of that need to be strengthened. Once as we continue to converse with each other as Caribbean brothers and sisters, we need to support that kind of movement, help in any way, shape, or form, so that when we take our voice and when we move as a unified front, there'll be no hesitation on our part, as Turks and Caicos Islands, and as young people, and as I was told to stop saying this as the youngest parliamentarian. There's so much that we have to offer, but we do understand that the process is there. I think we have to be strategic in what that looks like, but not get weary with that process, because it might not happen as quickly as we would like it to be. So we have a wonderful opportunity. I think I see it. But it's important for me to make sure that my counterparts, my generation, they also buy into what we have as in our country. So I mean, in a nutshell, that's where I see us going in 10 to 20 years.
All right, we'll come vote for you. See?
Yes,
three votes right there.
Of course.
Dr. Suma, where do you see the region in the next 10 to 20 years?
The road that we face is a difficult one, and it's not one for the faint-hearted. But I believe that together we can stay the course. And so, like Honorable Knowles, I believe that we must start with a better understanding of ourselves as a people. Our history must be taught in our schools. Our young people must understand who they are for them to understand where we want to go. So I believe that it's essential for us to start looking at these fundamental things in each of our islands. At the regional level, I want us to be able to come together and see that we have the ability in the next 20 years to be able to create a future and futures for our young people that are sustainable. I want to see that. And as a region, I want that philosophy to transcend us, for us to make our appearance on the world stage in an even more profound way. Yes, one or two of our leaders are making an impact right now, but we must, as a region, and don't allow them to divide us and tell us we're not a region, that we're individuals. There are strengths in being an individual, but there is also strength in unity. I want us to understand that we are in a position to develop our own partnerships. I am so pleased to see the way we have reached out to Africa. And so I think that as somebody who sits on the United Nations Permanent Forum for People of African Descent, I want to see us embrace ourselves and our faces that we see in the African diaspora. We are not just Caribbean. We are not just Caribbean. We are also African in my perspective. Yes, we are multicultural and we have to embrace all those around us, but all of it comes from knowing who we are and where we came from. And I think that will lead us to success.
Yes. On that note, I watched, I have to find the name, but I watched a video of a gentleman. He is an African, and he went to the African Union in Organization of African Union in Africa, in Ethiopia, and he made a profound speech saying how just to get from one country in Africa to the other, he had to go through so many hoops. He had to each country he had to go to, he had to get this code, he had to change his SIM card, he had to do this, he had to do the other. He says, listen, when you go to Europe, you don't have to go to this. And we're 10 times bigger than Europe. We have this problem. He said, when you have the United Nations General Council, if Russia comes to speak, everybody listens. If America comes to speak, everybody listens. You got a room full. But when African leaders come to speak, no one's rushing to no pun intended. There's very few people in the room. In other words, we're speaking just to ourselves. People don't recognize us, don't respect us, our strength, because we don't stand together. And last year, this goes to another point. Last year there was the first I forgot the exact wording, but conference between CARICOM and the African states. And so when we as Bermuda, we found out that, okay, what's the Zoom login, right? So we got a message back to say, oh, you can't attend this because you all are independent countries. And it was hurtful because you're saying, okay, we're not independent, but we're still African. We're still Caribbean. And this goes back to the point of even at the hierarchies of our own organizations, we have we class ourselves, right? Because let's say Bermuda was invited, let's say Turks and Caicos, Cayman Island, you think what's going to happen? The Americans are going to get upset? We allow ourselves to divide ourselves up, right? So I just want to add in, thank you for your work with the United Nations.
Maybe you should ask for a review of what associate membership means. I put that on the table.
Yes, well, I would take your advice, but I just found it hurtful, number one, and regressive because are we not one people? Why are you classifying us as less than amongst our own? Why? But anyway.
Well, can I just answer it very simply? Because there is a fear that if you are allowed into the room, you might not be the only person in the room. Somebody who sees you as an overseas territory and oversees you might be in the room.
Mm.
You understand? I served as Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States, and some of the associate members were represented by France, people from France, people from the Netherlands. So you understand that you cannot, as an independent organization, allow other people into your room. So it has to be clear that if you are allowed into the room, who is in the room? And so we have to have these discussions. We must have these discussions, Christopher. Raise it at the level of CARICOM and hear what they have to say with regard to attendance and representation and so on. So,
Okay. Well, on that note, we are at our 1 hour mark. Any closing remarks, Shaina?
No, I just want to say another great discussion in terms of showing what the region or Caribbean region is capable of, and to make sure that this conversation continues, because I was reminded about the conference that we both presented at, the third Montserrat conference the other day. And when I did the research, the population of the region is approximately 44.2 million. So that in itself, if we're going to play the numbers game, we already are. What we need now is leadership. And I think that's what all of us have been, reiterating, that it's important now for leadership, not just at the political level, but the business, the community, start to rally so that we have a grassroots movement behind, regional integration, and it not just be for one or two things. And I think that's where the fear is going to go, because, that to me is probably the underlying thing. We're so fearful of each other based on stigmas that have been placed on us over the years, that again, we can see past some of these things as being, false evidence appearing real. That's what fear means. We're fearful if a Haitian is going to migrate to the islands because we think they're bringing the worst of worst, or, if the bigger islands come in, we feel that we're going to be subsumed some way in the Virgin Islands. But it is for all of us to, I think, have that greater level of self-confidence, because that's one of the takeaways whenever I see Prime Minister Marley speak, that as a Caribbean woman, she is very confident in who she is as a Barbadian, but also as a West Indian, and has that just comes off of her, where you have to respect that. Regardless of what you think about me, that's not my reality. So I just want to encourage us, as a regional family. We always talk about the overseas territory family, but now, Chris, is really that broader conversation of, speaking to that 44 million plus, to say that, guys, we can do this, we can come together, and we can basically, change not just our little space here, but change the world.
Definitely.
Agree. Any closing remarks, Honorable Kyle Knowles, MP, Beyonce's cousin?
No, I think that this was definitely a pleasure to be a part of such a wonderful group this evening. The conversation was definitely insightful, educational, and the depth of it is something that, I wish this was a conversation that we were having in person, because I felt it. I felt the depth of where we were going. But again, thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Suma. Thank you, Ms. Smith Archer. Chris, it was definitely a wonderful opportunity to be here with you guys this evening. I really appreciated it.
And our main guest, our mentor, Dr. Suma.
Well, let me also express my gratitude for your invitation to be here. As you can see, I really enjoyed my presentations and mingling with you and getting to know you better. I look forward to further engagement.
Mhm.
And feel free to call me anytime for us. I am at the stage in my life where I think my activist ways will serve you well as OTIs, people who want to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
I am at the stage, I am in the Virgin Islands right now and helping them with the National Sustainable Development Plan. And I want to see the success, I want to see the progress, I want to see the movements towards autonomy in our countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I forgot to greet you properly by saying Sakafet.
Voilà, ça fait.
Voilà. Sabon, sabon. That's Creole for how you doing, right? Correct?
You do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So close us out, please, Shaina.
All right. Well, again, if this just happened to be your first time tuning in with us, we want to encourage you to like our Facebook page, Territory Talk. Once we schedule a broadcast, it would automatically show up as an event post, and then you will be reminded. So you don't want to miss any more of these conversations going forward. We also have a YouTube channel, Territory Talk, so you can go and subscribe to that as well, so that you stay connected as we continue to unify and inform our Caribbean family. Have a good evening.
And thank our media partners.
Oh, yes. And again, it's a regional effort. So we want to say thank you once again to our media partners, Cayman Marl Road Facebook, Montserrat ZJB Radio, Virgin Islands CBN Radio FM 90.9, Bermuda's Channel 82, Saba PJFE FM 93.9, Barbados CBC Channel 8, and we are all the way in Guyana now, News-Talk Radio FM 103.1. So thank you to everyone. So until next time, have a good evening from Territory Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, have a good evening.